Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the edge of a vast, still lake. The surface is so smooth it mirrors the sky, and the air is so quiet you can hear the faint rustle of leaves in the distance. You are here, in this moment, and the world around you is neither demanding nor resisting. It simply is. This is the essence of relaxation, not the absence of effort, but the absence of struggle. To relax is to allow yourself to be as you are, to let the currents of life flow through you without clinging or pushing away. It is to trust that the lake, like your own being, knows how to hold itself, how to reflect the light, how to ripple when the wind comes, and how to return to stillness when it passes. You may have noticed how often you tense your body, your mind, your heart, as if bracing against something unseen. Perhaps it is the weight of expectations, the fear of what might come, or the lingering ache of what has already passed. These tensions are like stones dropped into the lake, disturbing its calm, sending ripples that distort the reflection of the sky. But what if you could let the stones fall and simply watch the ripples? What if you could observe the disturbance without becoming it? This is the practice of allowing. It is not about erasing the stones or stopping the ripples. It is about recognizing that the lake is vast enough to contain them, and that stillness will return in its own time. Consider the way a tree stands in a storm. Its branches may sway, its leaves may tremble, but its roots remain steady, anchored deep in the earth. The tree does not resist the wind. It moves with it, bending but not breaking. In the same way, you too can learn to move with the winds of life, the joys, the sorrows, the uncertainties, without losing your center. Your roots are your awareness, your connection to the present moment. When you rest in this awareness, you find that you are not the storm, nor are you the tree. You are the space in which both exist, the vastness that holds all things. There is a teaching in Buddhism known as upekkha, often translated as equanimity. It is the ability to remain balanced and open-hearted in the face of life's ever-changing conditions. Equanimity is not indifference. It is not a cold detachment from the world. Rather, it is a deep understanding that all things arise and pass away, and that clinging to what is fleeting only brings suffering. When you cultivate equanimity, you begin to see that happiness is not something to be chased or grasped. It is not a destination, but a quality of being that arises naturally when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Think of the way a river flows. It does not question its path. It does not resist the rocks or the bends in its course. It simply moves, carving its way through the landscape with a quiet persistence. The river does not worry about where it is going or how long it will take to get there. It trusts the flow, knowing that it will eventually reach the sea. In the same way, you can trust the flow of your own life. You do not need to force or hurry or struggle. You only need to let go of the need to control, to surrender to the current of the present moment. Sometimes the greatest obstacle to happiness is the belief that it must be earned or achieved. You may think, if only I could be more successful, more loved, more perfect, then I would be happy. But this is like chasing a mirage in the desert, always just out of reach. True happiness is not a reward for effort. It is the natural state of a mind at ease. It is the peace that comes when you stop striving and simply rest in the fullness of the present moment. You do not need to do anything to deserve it. You only need to allow it. There is a story of a monk who sat by a river every day, watching the water flow. One day, a traveler approached him and asked, "What is the secret to happiness?" The monk pointed to the river and said, "Do you see how the water moves? It does not try to be still, nor does it try to flow. It simply is. Be like the water." The traveler, puzzled, asked, "But how can I be like the water?" The monk smiled and replied, "By not trying to be anything at all." This is the paradox of relaxation. The more you try to relax, the more you tighten. The more you seek happiness, the more it eludes you. But when you stop trying, when you let go of the need to be anything other than what you are, something shifts. The tension in your body softens. The chatter in your mind quiets. And in that space, happiness arises on its own. like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkness. You may wonder, what if I let go and nothing changes? What if I relax and the world falls apart? These fears are natural, but they are also illusions. The world does not depend on your tension to hold it together. In fact, it is your tension that distorts your perception, making the world seem more fragile, more threatening than it truly is. When you relax, you begin to see that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. You begin to trust that the universe is not against you, but with you, supporting you in ways you may not always understand. There is a practice in mindfulness meditation known as shikantasa, or just sitting. It is the act of sitting in stillness without any goal or agenda, simply being present with whatever arises. In this practice, you do not try to change your thoughts or feelings. You do not try to achieve a particular state of mind. You simply sit, allowing everything to be as it is. Over time, this practice teaches you that you do not need to fix or improve yourself. You are already whole, already complete. Happiness is not something you need to find. It is something you already are. As you go about your day, notice the moments when you feel at ease, when you are fully present and engaged with what you are doing. Perhaps it is the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of a meal, the sound of a loved one's laughter. These moments are not rare or extraordinary. They are always available if you are willing to notice them. They are reminders that happiness is not a distant goal, but a quality of attention, a way of being in the world. And so, as you stand at the edge of the lake, or sit by the river, or walk through the forest, remember this: you do not need to do anything to be happy. You only need to relax, to allow, to be. Let the world come to you as it always does, in its own time, in its own way. And in that allowing, you will find that happiness is not something that comes to you, but something that arises within you, like the sun breaking through the clouds, illuminating everything in its path. There is a quiet place within you, a stillness that exists beneath the surface of all your thoughts, worries, and desires. It is not something you must create or achieve, but something you must simply allow to emerge. Imagine a vast open field at dawn, where the first light of day touches the earth with a soft, golden glow. The field does not strain to receive the light. It simply is, and the light comes. In the same way, your true nature is already here, waiting to be recognized. You need only relax into it, like a leaf floating on the surface of a calm lake, carried by the gentle current of existence. Life, like a river, flows in its own rhythm. It does not hurry, nor does it pause. It moves with a quiet inevitability, carving its path through the landscape of time. You may find yourself resisting this flow, clinging to the banks, trying to control the direction or speed of the water. But the river does not need your guidance. It knows where it is going. When you release your grip, when you stop fighting the current, you begin to move with it effortlessly. This is the essence of acceptance. Not resignation, but a deep trust in the natural order of things. Consider the seasons, how they change without struggle. The trees do not mourn the loss of their leaves in autumn. They let them fall, knowing that spring will bring new growth. There is a wisdom in this surrender, a recognition that all things are transient, and that clinging to what is passing only brings suffering. You too are part of this cycle. The moments of joy, the moments of sorrow, they are like the seasons, each with its own purpose, its own beauty. When you allow them to come and go without resistance, you find a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but arises from within. In the stillness of meditation, you may begin to notice the thoughts that arise like clouds in the sky. They drift across your awareness, sometimes casting shadows, sometimes bringing rain. But the sky itself remains unchanged, vast and infinite. Your true self is like that sky, vast, unchanging, and always present. The thoughts are not you. They are simply passing phenomena. When you stop identifying with them, when you stop trying to control or suppress them, they lose their power over you. You become the observer, the witness. And in that space of observation, there is freedom. There is a profound simplicity in letting go. It is not a grand gesture, but a quiet release, like exhaling a breath you did not realize you were holding. You do not need to figure everything out to have all the answers. Life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. When you stop trying to impose your will on the world, when you stop seeking happiness in external things, you begin to discover that happiness has always been within you, like a hidden spring bubbling up from the depths of the earth. The mind is often like a stormy sea, with waves of thought crashing against the shores of your consciousness. But beneath the surface, there is a stillness, a depth that is untouched by the turmoil. When you learn to rest in this depth, the storms no longer disturb you. You find a stability that is not shaken by the changing winds of circumstance. This is the peace that comes from within, a peace that is not dependent on what happens around you, but on your relationship to what happens. Imagine a lotus flower growing in the mud at the bottom of a pond. It does not resist the mud, nor does it try to escape it. It simply grows, reaching for the light, and in time it blossoms into something of exquisite beauty. Your life is like that lotus. The challenges, the difficulties, they are the mud from which you grow. When you stop resisting them, when you stop seeing them as obstacles, you begin to see them as opportunities for transformation. The mud is not the enemy. It is the soil in which your potential is nurtured. There is a rhythm to life, a pulse that beats beneath the surface of all things. When you align yourself with this rhythm, you find a harmony that is not of your making, but of the universe itself. It is like dancing to a song that you cannot hear, but feel in every fiber of your being. The steps are not predetermined. They arise in the moment, guided by an intelligence that is greater than your own. When you let go of the need to control, when you trust in the flow, the dance becomes effortless, joyful. The present moment is all there ever is. The past is a memory, the future a projection. But here now in this moment, there is a fullness, a completeness that is always available to you. You do not need to wait for the right conditions, for the perfect circumstances. Happiness is not something that will come to you in the future. It is something you can access in the present, simply by being fully here, fully alive. When you stop chasing after what you think will make you happy, you begin to see that happiness is already here, in the simple act of breathing, in the feeling of the sun on your skin, in the sound of the wind in the trees. There is a quiet joy in acceptance, a joy that comes from knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to be doing. It is a joy that does not depend on external validation, on the approval of others, on the achievement of goals. It is a joy that arises from within, like the first light of dawn, illuminating everything it touches. When you stop striving, when you stop trying to be something other than what you are, you begin to experience this joy. It is not something you need to seek. It is something you need to allow. In the end, happiness is not something that comes to you from the outside. It is not something you can grasp or hold on to. It is something you must let in, like the light of the sun, like the warmth of a fire. When you open yourself to it, when you stop resisting, when you stop trying to control, it flows into your life, filling every corner, every crevice. It is not something you need to earn or deserve. It is your birthright, your natural state. You need only relax into it, and it will come to you, like the river to the sea, like the moon to the night sky. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast meadow, where the wind moves through the grasses with a rhythm that feels ancient, almost eternal. The blades sway, not because they force themselves to, but because the breeze carries them. They do not resist, they do not struggle. They simply are, and in their being, they find a kind of peace that is effortless, unburdened. This meadow, with its endless horizon and its quiet hum of life, is not so different from the landscape of your own mind. It too stretches wide and open, and it too is moved by forces beyond its control. Yet how often do you stand in the center of that inner meadow, tense and rigid, trying to hold the wind still? How often do you strain against the currents of your own existence, as though stillness could only be found in the absence of movement? There is a teaching in the Buddhist tradition that speaks of upekkha, often translated as equanimity. It is not indifference, nor is it a cold detachment. It is rather a deep acceptance of the way things are, a willingness to let life flow without grasping or pushing away. Imagine a leaf floating on the surface of a slow-moving river. It does not fight the current, nor does it try to speed ahead. It simply rides the water, turning gently when the river bends, resting in the eddies, moving again when the current carries it forward. The leaf does not ask why the river flows as it does. It does not judge the river as good or bad. It simply allows itself to be carried. This is equanimity. This is the art of letting go, not because you have decided to, but because you have seen that there is no other way to truly live. Consider for a moment the seasons. They do not hurry. Spring does not rush into summer. Autumn does not plead with winter to arrive faster. Each season unfolds in its own time, and in that unfolding, there is a natural harmony. Even in the moments of transition, when the last leaves fall, when the first frost bites the air, there is no chaos, only the steady rhythm of change. You are no different. Your life, too, has its seasons. There are times of growth and times of decay, times of warmth and times of cold. And yet, how often do you resist the turning of your own inner seasons? How often do you cling to the warmth of summer, even as the first chill of autumn whispers that it is time to let go? There is a story about a monk who sat by a river every day, watching the water flow. One day, a young disciple asked him, "Master, why do you spend so much time here? What do you see in the river?" The monk smiled and said, "I see the river teaching me how to live. It does not stop, yet it is never in a hurry. It does not hold on, yet it never loses anything. It simply flows, and in its flowing, it finds its way." The disciple frowned, puzzled. "But how does this help me?" The monk laughed softly. "It helps you when you stop trying to understand it and simply sit by the river yourself." This is not a call to inaction, nor is it a suggestion that you should abandon your responsibilities or your dreams. It is rather an invitation to notice how much of your energy is spent in resistance. Notice how often you tighten your grip on life, as though by holding on, you could keep it from slipping away. And then gently ask yourself, what would it feel like to loosen that grip? What would it feel like to trust the flow, even if just for a moment? There is a kind of happiness that does not need to be sought, because it is already here. It is not the happiness of achievement or possession, nor is it the fleeting joy of momentary pleasure. It is the happiness of being, the quiet contentment that arises when you stop trying to be something other than what you are. It is the happiness of the meadow swaying in the wind. It is the happiness of the leaf floating on the river. It is the happiness of the seasons turning in their time. This happiness does not come to you because you have earned it or because you have found the right way to live. It comes to you when you stop trying to make it come. It is always here, waiting for you to notice it. Think of the sky. It is vast and unchanging, yet it is never the same. Clouds pass through it, storms rage, and stars appear, but the sky itself remains untouched. It does not cling to the clouds, nor does it resist the storms. It simply is, and in its being, it holds everything. Your mind too is like the sky. Thoughts pass through it, emotions rise and fall, but the essence of your being remains untouched. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You are the sky, vast and open, and everything else is simply weather. When you forget this, when you identify with the storm instead of the sky, you suffer. But when you remember, even for a moment, that you are the sky, there is a kind of peace that cannot be shaken. There is a practice in Buddhism known as zazen, or seated meditation. It is not about achieving a particular state of mind or transcending your thoughts. It is rather about sitting with what is, without judgment, without resistance. It is about allowing the mind to be as it is, without trying to change it. In this allowing, there is a profound relaxation, a kind of letting go that is not an act of will, but an act of surrender. And in that surrender, there is a peace that is not dependent on circumstances. It is the peace of the sky holding the storm. It is the peace of the river carrying the leaf. It is the peace of the meadow swaying in the wind. This is not something you can force. It is not something you can achieve through effort or willpower. It is something you can only allow. And yet, allowing is often the hardest thing to do. It requires a kind of trust, a trust in life, a trust in yourself. It requires a willingness to let go, not because you have decided to, but because you have seen that holding on is the source of your suffering. And this seeing is not something that can be taught. It is something that must be experienced. It is something that arises in the quiet moments when you stop trying to figure it all out and simply allow yourself to be. So come back to the meadow, stand at its edge, and feel the wind on your skin. Notice how it moves through you, how it carries you, even if just for a moment. And in that moment, there is a kind of happiness that does not need to be sought because it is already here. It is the happiness of being, the happiness of the meadow swaying in the wind. It is the happiness of the leaf floating on the river. It is the happiness of the seasons turning in their time. It is the happiness of the sky holding the storm. It is the happiness of your own mind, vast and open, untouched by the passing weather, and it is always here, waiting for you to notice it. The world moves in rhythms, like the breath of the earth itself. You too are part of this rhythm, though you may not always feel it. There are moments when life feels like a storm, chaotic and unrelenting, and others when it is as still as a mountain lake at dawn. Yet even in the storm, there is a quiet center, a place within you that remains untouched by the turbulence. It is not a place you need to create or find, for it has always been there, waiting for you to return. To relax is not to escape the storm, but to rest in the eye of it, to let the winds howl around you while you remain rooted in the calm. Imagine yourself as a leaf floating on the surface of a vast, slow-moving river. The river does not hurry, nor does it pause. It simply flows, carrying everything in its path with a gentle inevitability. You too are carried by this river, though you may resist its current, clinging to the banks or thrashing against the water. What would happen if you stopped? If you allowed the river to take you where it will? There is no need to fight, no need to struggle. The river knows where it is going, and it will carry you there in its own time. To relax is to trust the river, to let go of the illusion that you must control its course. The seasons teach us this lesson in their own quiet way. Winter does not cling to its frost, nor does summer resist the coming of autumn. Each season yields to the next, knowing that its time will come again. You too are part of this cycle, though you may resist the changes in your life, holding on to what is past or fearing what is to come. What if you could embrace each moment as the seasons do, without attachment or aversion? What if you could see the beauty in the falling leaves, the stillness of the snow, the first buds of spring? To relax is to accept the impermanence of all things, to find peace in the ever-changing flow of life. There is a story of a monk who sat by a stream, watching the water flow by. A traveler approached and asked, "What is the secret of happiness?" The monk did not answer immediately. Instead, he pointed to the stream and said, "Do you see how the water moves? It does not try to be still, nor does it struggle to flow. It simply is." The traveler frowned, unsatisfied. "But how does that help me?" he asked. The monk smiled. "When you stop trying to be happy, happiness will find you. It is like the water, always moving, always present, but only when you stop chasing it." You may have noticed that the harder you strive for happiness, the more it seems to elude you. It is like trying to catch a butterfly. The more you chase it, the further it flies away. But if you sit still, if you let go of the need to possess it, it may alight on your shoulder of its own accord. Happiness is not something you can grasp or hold on to. It is a state of being, a way of seeing the world. To relax is to open yourself to this state, to let it come to you as naturally as the dawn. Consider the way a tree grows. It does not strain or struggle to reach the sun. It simply stretches its branches toward the light, trusting that it will be nourished. You too can grow in this way, without effort or force. There is no need to push yourself, no need to strive. Growth happens naturally in its own time, when the conditions are right. To relax is to trust in this process, to allow yourself to unfold like a flower opening to the morning light. There is a deep wisdom in the body, a knowing that goes beyond the mind. When you are tense, your body tells you. When you are at peace, it tells you that too. Yet so often you ignore these signals, pushing through discomfort or numbing yourself to the sensations of life. What if you could listen to your body as you would listen to a wise friend? What if you could honor its rhythms, its needs, its whispers? To relax is to return to the body, to inhabit it fully, to let it guide you back to the present moment. The mind, too, has its own rhythms, its own currents. Thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky, sometimes light and fleeting, sometimes dark and heavy. You may try to hold on to the pleasant thoughts or push away the unpleasant ones, but this only creates more tension. What if you could let the thoughts pass without clinging or resisting? What if you could watch them as you would watch the clouds, with curiosity and detachment? To relax is to let the mind be as it is, to allow it to settle like a pond after a storm. There is a practice in Buddhism called just sitting. It is not about achieving anything or reaching a particular state. It is simply about being present, about sitting with whatever arises without judgment or expectation. You do not need to be a monk to practice this. You can do it anywhere, at any time. Sit quietly and let the world be as it is. Let yourself be as you are. There is nothing to fix and nothing to change. To relax is to return to the simplicity, to the stillness that is always here, beneath the noise and the busyness. The world will always be full of challenges, of joys and sorrows, of beginnings and endings. You cannot control these things, but you can choose how you meet them. You can meet them with tension and resistance, or you can meet them with openness and ease. The choice is yours. To relax is not to avoid life, but to embrace it fully, to meet each moment with a heart that is soft and a mind that is clear. It is to let go of the need to control, to trust in the flow of life, and to find peace in the midst of it all. So take a deep breath. Feel the air moving in and out of your body. Notice the sensations, the rise and fall of your chest. This is the rhythm of life, the rhythm of the present moment. You do not need to do anything. You do not need to be anywhere else. You are here now, and that is enough. To relax is to return to this truth, to rest in the knowing that you are already whole, already complete. Let the world move around you. Let the river carry you. Let happiness find you, as it always does, when you stop chasing it. You sit quietly, perhaps in the stillness of early morning or the quietude of dusk, and you notice something subtle, something often overlooked. It is the way the air moves, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth or the distant murmur of life unfolding. It is the way your breath rises and falls, unhurried, like the ebb and flow of tides. And in this moment, you begin to sense that there is a rhythm to existence, a rhythm that does not demand your effort, but rather invites your surrender. It is the rhythm of life itself, and it is already within you, as natural as the turning of seasons. Consider the tree outside your window, or the one you pass on your daily walk. It does not strain to grow. It does not worry about the shape of its leaves or the direction of its branches. It simply grows, rooted in the earth, reaching toward the sky. It does not resist the wind or the rain, nor does it cling to the sun. It accepts what comes, and in that acceptance, it thrives. You too are like this tree. You have within you the capacity to grow, to flourish, but only when you release the need to control, to force, to grasp. Happiness, like the sunlight that nourishes the tree, cannot be seized. It can only be received. There is a quiet wisdom in the way nature moves. The river does not struggle to reach the ocean. It flows effortlessly, following the contours of the land. The clouds do not strive to paint the sky. They simply drift, their forms ever-changing, their colors shifting with the light. And yet, in their movement, there is a profound beauty, a harmony that arises not from effort, but from presence. You too can find this harmony, not by striving, but by allowing. Allow yourself to be as you are. In this moment, without judgment, without resistance, allow happiness to come to you, not as something to be achieved, but as something to be noticed, welcomed, and embraced. You may find yourself asking, how can I simply allow? How can I let go of the need to control, to plan, to strive? The answer lies not in doing, but in being. It lies in the quiet spaces between your thoughts, in the pauses between your breaths. It lies in the way you notice the warmth of the sun on your skin, the way you listen to the sound of your own heartbeat. These are the moments when you are most fully alive, most fully present. And in these moments, happiness is not something you seek, it is something you inhabit. Think of the way a child plays with complete abandon, completely absorbed in the moment. There is no thought of the future, no regret of the past. There is only the joy of discovery, the pleasure of movement, the wonder of existence. You were once this child, and somewhere within you, you still are. You can return to this state not by trying to recapture it, but by letting go of everything that stands in its way. Let go of the need to be perfect, the need to be in control, the need to be anything other than what you are. In this letting go, you create space, space for happiness to enter, space for peace to settle, space for life to flow. There is a story of a monk who sat by the river every day, watching the water flow. One day, a passerby asked him, "What are you doing?" The monk replied, "I am watching the river." The passerby, confused, said, "But the river is always the same. Why do you watch it every day?" The monk smiled and said, "The river is never the same. It is always changing, always moving, and yet it is always the river." You too are like this river. Your thoughts, your emotions, your experiences, they are always changing, always moving. And yet beneath it all, there is a stillness, a presence that remains unchanged. This is your true nature. This is where happiness resides. You may wonder, but what about the challenges, the difficulties, the pain? How can I find happiness in the midst of all that? The truth is, happiness is not the absence of difficulty. It is the presence of acceptance. It is the ability to meet whatever arises with an open heart, with a mind that is not clouded by resistance or fear. It is the willingness to be with what is, without wishing it were otherwise. In this acceptance, there is a deep peace, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but on your own inner state. Imagine yourself standing on the shore of a vast ocean. The waves rise and fall, some gentle, some fierce. You cannot control them. You cannot stop them. But you can stand there rooted in the sand and let them wash over you. You can feel their power, their movement, and yet remain steady, unshaken. This is the essence of acceptance. It is not about denying or avoiding what is difficult. It is about meeting it with presence, with courage, with openness. And in this meeting, you find that even the most challenging moments can be a source of growth, of understanding, of peace. You are not separate from the world around you. You are a part of it, just as the tree is a part of the forest, just as the river is a part of the earth. And just as the tree and the river do not struggle against the natural order, neither do you need to. You can trust in the flow of life, in the wisdom of your own being. You can let go of the need to force, to control, to resist. And in this letting go, you find that happiness is not something you need to pursue. It is something you already are. So sit quietly and notice the rhythm of your breath, the beating of your heart. Notice the way the world moves around you, the way life unfolds in its own time, in its own way. And in this noticing, allow yourself to relax, to soften, to open. Allow happiness to come to you, not as something you need to find, but as something that is already here, waiting for you to see it, to feel it, to embrace it. In this allowing, you find that happiness is not a destination, it is a way of being, and it is within you, always. The world moves in rhythms, like the breath of the earth itself. You too are part of this rhythm, though you may not always feel it. There are moments when life feels like a storm, chaotic and unrelenting, and others when it is as still as a mountain lake at dawn. Yet even in the storm, there is a quiet center, a place within you that remains untouched by the turbulence. It is not a place you need to create or find, for it has always been there, waiting for you to return. To relax is not to let go of effort, but to release the tension that obscures the center, to allow the natural flow of life to carry you, as a leaf is carried by a gentle stream. Consider the way a tree stands in the forest. It does not strain to grow. It does not fight against the wind or the rain. It simply is. Its roots sink deep into the earth, drawing nourishment without struggle, while its branches reach toward the sky, open to the light. The tree does not question its place in the world, nor does it resist the changing seasons. In spring, it blooms. In autumn, it lets go. There is no clinging, no fear, only a quiet acceptance of what is. You too can learn from this wisdom. To relax is to trust in the process of life, to know that you are rooted in something greater than yourself, and that you are held, even when you cannot see the hands that hold you. There is a story of a monk who sat by a river every day, watching the water flow. One day a traveler approached him and asked, "Why do you sit here? What do you gain from watching the river?" The monk smiled and said, "I gain nothing. I simply watch. The river does not need me to flow, and I do not need the river to be at peace. Yet in watching, I am reminded that all things pass, and that there is a deeper current beneath the surface of life." The traveler, unsatisfied, walked away, but the monk remained, his heart as calm as the river itself. You too can sit by the river of your own life, not to gain anything, but to simply be. In this being, you may find that happiness is not something to be pursued, but something that arises naturally, like the morning mist over a quiet lake. The mind is often like a restless bird, flitting from branch to branch, never settling for long. It clings to thoughts of the past, worries about the future, and overlooks the present moment. Yet the present is all there is. The past is a shadow, the future a dream, and the present is the only reality. To relax is to bring the mind back to this moment, to let go of the branches and rest in the stillness between thoughts. This is not a task to be accomplished, but a gentle turning of attention, like the sun turning its face toward the earth at dawn. In this turning, you may find that happiness is not something you need to chase, but something that is already here, waiting for you to notice it. There is a kind of peace that comes not from the absence of difficulty, but from the acceptance of it. Life is not always easy, and it is not meant to be. The seasons do not ask for permission to change. They simply do. Winter does not resist the coming of spring, nor does summer cling to its warmth as autumn approaches. Each season has its purpose, its beauty, and its challenges. In the same way, your life has its own seasons, its own rhythms. To relax is to accept these rhythms, to flow with them rather than against them. In this acceptance, you may find that happiness is not a destination, but a way of being, a quiet presence that accompanies you through all the seasons of your life. Imagine a lotus flower growing in a muddy pond. The mud is not an obstacle to its growth, but the very thing that nourishes it. Without the mud, there would be no lotus. In the same way, the challenges and difficulties of life are not obstacles to your happiness, but the very things that make it possible. They are the soil in which your inner peace grows. To relax is to trust in this process, to know that even in the mud, there is beauty waiting to emerge. You do not need to force the lotus to bloom. It will do so in its own time. In the same way, you do not need to force happiness to come. It will arise naturally when the conditions are right. There is a kind of wisdom that comes not from thinking, but from being. It is the wisdom of the heart, the wisdom of the body, the wisdom of the earth itself. This wisdom knows that everything is interconnected, that you are not separate from the world around you, but a part of it. To relax is to tap into this wisdom, to let go of the illusion of separation and rest in the truth of your connection. In this resting, you may find that happiness is not something you need to find, but something you already are. It is the natural state of being, the essence of who you are, beneath all the layers of thought and emotion. The breath is a bridge between the body and the mind, between the outer world and the inner world. It is always with you, a constant companion, a reminder of the present moment. To relax is to return to the breath, to let it guide you back to the here and now. In this returning, you may find that happiness is not something you need to seek, but something that is always available, like the air you breathe. It is not something you need to create, but something you need only to allow. In this allowing, you may find that happiness is not a goal, but a gift, a natural expression of your true nature. There is a kind of freedom that comes not from escaping life, but from embracing it. It is the freedom to be exactly as you are, without judgment, without resistance. To relax is to step into this freedom, to let go of the need to control, to fix, to change. In this letting go, you may find that happiness is not something you need to achieve, but something you need only to receive. It is not something you need to earn, but something you already have, like the sun that shines on you, whether you are aware of it or not. In this receiving, you may find that happiness is not a destination, but a journey, a way of being in the world. The heart is like a deep well, filled with the waters of love and compassion. These waters are always there, waiting to be drawn upon, waiting to nourish you and those around you. To relax is to open the heart, to let these waters flow freely without obstruction. In this opening, you may find that happiness is not something you need to find, but something you need only to share. It is not something you need to possess, but something you need only to give. In this giving, you may find that happiness is not a possession, but a presence, a light that shines from within. There is a kind of peace that comes not from the absence of noise, but from the presence of silence. It is the silence of the mind, the silence of the heart, the silence of the soul. To relax is to enter into this silence, to let it envelop you, to let it carry you. In this silence, you may find that happiness is not something you need to seek, but something you need only to listen for. It is not something you need to create, but something you need only to hear. In this listening, you may find that happiness is not a sound, but a silence, a stillness that is always there, waiting for you to return. The world moves in rhythms, like the soft inhale and exhale of a sleeping forest. You too are part of this rhythm, though sometimes it feels as though you are standing still, watching the flow of life pass by. You may have wondered why happiness seems to elude you, why it feels like a distant shore you can never quite reach. But happiness is not a destination. It is not something you must chase or grasp. It is already here, woven into the fabric of existence, waiting for you to notice it. The first step is to relax, not into complacency, but into acceptance. To let go of the tension in your shoulders, the clenching of your mind, and allow yourself to simply be. Imagine yourself as a leaf floating on the surface of a still lake. The leaf does not struggle against the water. It does not try to paddle or steer. It simply rests, carried by the gentle currents. This is how you might approach your own life, not as something to be controlled or forced, but as a natural unfolding. The leaf does not worry about where it is going or whether it is moving fast enough. It trusts the water to carry it where it needs to be. Can you trust life in the same way? Can you release the need to know what comes next and instead allow yourself to be carried by the present moment? There is a subtle but profound shift that occurs when you stop trying to control the flow of life and instead surrender to it. It is not a passive surrender, but an active one. a choice to let go of resistance. Resistance is like trying to swim upstream in a river. It exhausts you, leaves you breathless, and yet you remain in the same place. But when you stop fighting the current, the river carries you effortlessly. It is not that the river changes, it is that you change your relationship to it. You begin to see that the obstacles you once feared are not barriers, but part of the journey itself. Consider the seasons. Each one arrives in its own time, without hurry or delay. Spring does not rush to become summer, nor does autumn resist the coming of winter. Each season has its purpose, its beauty, its lessons. So too with the seasons of your life. There are times of growth and times of rest, times of abundance and times of scarcity. Each one is necessary, each one a teacher. When you resist a season, when you cling to summer in the face of winter's chill, you create suffering. But when you accept each season as it is, you find peace. You begin to see that even in the coldest winter, there is a quiet beauty, a stillness that invites reflection. The mind, too, has its seasons. There are moments of clarity and moments of confusion, moments of joy and moments of sorrow. Often you try to hold on to the pleasant moments and push away the unpleasant ones. But this only creates tension, a sense of struggle. What if instead you allowed each moment to be as it is? What if you greeted each thought, each feeling, with the same openness? You might find that even the so-called negative emotions, grief, anger, fear, have something to offer. They are not enemies to be defeated, but messengers to be listened to. When you stop resisting them, they lose their power to disturb you. They become like passing clouds, here for a time and then gone. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the idea of non-attachment. This does not mean that you should not care about anything or anyone. It means that you should not cling. Clinging is like trying to hold on to a handful of water. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you open your hand, the water remains resting in your palm. So too with life. When you cling to people, possessions, or outcomes, you create suffering. But when you hold them lightly with an open heart, you find freedom. You begin to see that everything is impermanent, that change is the only constant. And in this seeing, there is a deep sense of peace. You may have noticed that the more you pursue happiness, the more it seems to evade you. This is because happiness is not something you can possess. It is something you can only experience. It is not a treasure to be found, but a state of being. When you stop chasing it, when you stop trying to make it happen, it has a way of finding you. It is like the sun breaking through the clouds after a storm. You cannot force it to appear, but you can open yourself to its warmth. You can let go of the need to control, the need to know, and simply be present. And in that presence, happiness arises naturally. There is a story of a monk who was asked how he found happiness. He replied, "I stopped looking for it." At first, this may seem paradoxical. How can you find something by not looking for it? But the truth is that happiness is already here, within you, waiting to be discovered. It is not hidden. It is simply obscured by the noise of the mind. When you quiet the mind, when you stop searching and start listening, you begin to hear it. It is the sound of your own breath, the beating of your own heart. It is the stillness beneath the chaos, the peace beneath the fear. You might think that to find happiness, you need to change something. Your circumstances, your relationships, yourself. But true happiness does not depend on external conditions. It is not something you achieve, but something you realize. It is like the sky, always there, whether the clouds are present or not. The clouds may obscure it, but they do not destroy it. In the same way, your worries and fears may obscure your happiness, but they cannot take it away. When you stop identifying with the clouds, when you see them for what they are, passing phenomena, you begin to see the sky. And in that seeing, there is a profound sense of freedom. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. It is not something to be figured out, but something to be experienced. When you stop trying to control it, When you stop trying to make it fit your expectations, you begin to see its beauty. You begin to see that every moment is perfect, just as it is. Even the difficult moments, the painful moments, are part of the whole. They are not mistakes or failures, but opportunities for growth. When you accept them, when you embrace them, you find that they have something to teach you. And in that learning, there is a deep sense of peace. So take a deep breath. Let go of the need to know, the need to control, the need to achieve. Allow yourself to simply be. You are enough just as you are. You do not need to change or improve or become anything other than what you already are. Happiness is not something you need to find. It is something you need to remember. It is the essence of your being, the truth of your nature. When you stop searching for it, when you stop trying to grasp it, you begin to see that it has been here all along. It is in the stillness, the silence, the space between thoughts. It is in the beating of your heart, the breath in your lungs. It is in the present moment, the only moment there is. And when you realize this, when you truly see it, you find that happiness has always been within you, waiting to be discovered. The world moves in rhythms, like the gentle sway of tall grass in a meadow, bending but never breaking. You too are part of this rhythm, though you may not always feel it. There is a current beneath the surface of your life, a quiet flow that carries you forward even when you feel stuck. It is not something you need to create or control. It is already there, like the unseen roots of a tree that draw nourishment from the earth. To relax into this flow is not to give up or surrender, but to align yourself with the natural order of things. It is to trust that the river of life knows its course, even when you cannot see the destination. Consider the lotus, which grows in muddy waters, yet remains untouched by the filth around it. Its petals open slowly, in their own time, without force or hurry. You too can bloom in the midst of uncertainty, not by striving or struggling, but by allowing. The mud of your worries, your fears, your doubts. These are not obstacles to your growth, but the very soil from which your peace can emerge. When you resist the mud, you only sink deeper. When you accept it, you begin to rise. There is a stillness within you, a quiet center that remains untouched by the storms of life. It is like the eye of a hurricane, calm and unmoving, while the winds rage around it. To find this stillness, you need not retreat from the world or silence your thoughts. Instead, you can simply observe them, like clouds passing across the sky. They come, they go, but the sky remains unchanged. Your thoughts are not you. They are merely visitors, fleeting and insubstantial. When you stop clinging to them, they lose their power to disturb you. Imagine yourself standing on the shore of a vast ocean. The waves crash against the sand, each one different, each one unique. Some are gentle, lapping at your feet like a whisper. Others are fierce, roaring with a power that seems unstoppable. Yet no matter how strong the wave, it always recedes, returning to the depths from which it came. Your emotions are like these waves, rising, falling, and dissolving back into the ocean of your being. You do not need to fight them or hold on to them. You can simply let them be, knowing that they too are part of the flow. In the same way, the seasons change without effort or resistance. The trees do not cling to their leaves in autumn, nor do they rush to bloom in spring. They trust in the cycle of life, knowing that each season has its purpose. You too can trust in the seasons of your own life. There are times of growth and times of rest, times of joy and times of sorrow. Each moment is a gift, even if it does not feel like one at the time. When you stop trying to control the seasons, you begin to see the beauty in each one. There is a story of a monk who sat by a river every day, watching the water flow. One day, a traveler asked him what he was doing. The monk replied, "I am learning to let go." The traveler, puzzled, asked, "What do you mean?" The monk picked up a leaf and placed it on the water. See how the leaf does not resist the current? It does not try to swim upstream or cling to the shore. It simply flows with the river. This is how I wish to live, not fighting against life, but moving with it. You too can learn to let go. It does not mean abandoning your responsibilities or ignoring your desires. It means releasing the tension that comes from trying to hold on to what cannot be held. Life is not a thing to be grasped. It is an experience to be lived. When you stop clutching at it, you begin to feel its richness, its depth, its beauty. There is a kind of happiness that does not depend on external circumstances. It is not the fleeting joy of a new possession or the temporary pleasure of a moment's success. It is a deeper, more enduring peace that comes from within. This happiness is always available to you, but it cannot be found by searching or striving. It is like the sun, which shines whether or not you are aware of it. When you stop chasing after happiness, you may find that it has been with you all along. Think of a bird in flight. It does not worry about the wind or the distance. It simply spreads its wings and soars. You too can trust in your own ability to fly. You do not need to know every step of the journey or have all the answers. You only need to take the next step, and the next, and the next. The path will unfold before you, not because you force it, but because you allow it. There is a kind of wisdom that comes from stillness, from listening to the silence within. It is not the wisdom of books or theories, but the wisdom of the heart. When you quiet your mind and open your heart, you begin to hear this wisdom. It speaks in whispers, in intuitions, in moments of clarity. It does not shout or demand. It simply is. To hear it, you need only to be still. The world is full of noise, but beneath the noise there is a song. It is the song of life, of existence, of being. You are part of this song, and it is part of you. When you stop trying to sing your own tune and instead listen to the music of the universe, you begin to feel a sense of harmony. You realize that you are not separate from the world, but deeply connected to it. This connection is the source of your peace, your joy, your love. So relax, let go, allow. The river of life is flowing, and you are already in it. You do not need to swim against the current or struggle to reach the shore. You only need to float, to trust, to be. The happiness you seek is not something to be found. It is something to be realized. It is already within you, like the sun behind the clouds. When the clouds part, the light will shine through. And when it does, you will see that it has been there all along. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the edge of a vast, still lake. The surface is so smooth it mirrors the sky, and the air is so quiet you can hear the faint rustle of leaves in the distance. You are here in this moment, and the world around you is neither demanding nor resisting. It simply is. This is the essence of relaxation. Not the absence of effort, but the absence of struggle. To relax is to allow yourself to be as you are, to let the currents of life flow through you without clinging or pushing away. It is to trust that the lake, like your own being, knows how to hold itself, how to reflect the light, how to ripple when the wind comes, and how to return to stillness when it passes. You may have noticed how often you tense against life, how your body tightens, your mind races, and your heart contracts as if bracing for an unseen storm. This tension is not a flaw, it is a habit, a learned response to the uncertainties of existence. But what if you could soften? What if, instead of holding your breath, you could exhale deeply, letting your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, and your thoughts settle like leaves drifting to the ground? This is not a call to abandon responsibility or to stop caring. It is an invitation to release the unnecessary weight of resistance, to make space for something more natural, more fluid, more alive. Consider the way a tree bends in the wind. It does not fight the gusts, nor does it break under their force. It sways, flexible and rooted, allowing the wind to move through it. The tree does not ask why the wind blows or when it will stop. It simply responds moment by moment with grace and resilience. You too can learn to move with the winds of life, the unexpected changes, the joys, the sorrows, the challenges. You do not need to control them, nor do you need to be controlled by them. You can be like the tree, rooted in your own being, flexible in your response, and at peace with the impermanence of all things. There is a quiet wisdom in the act of letting go. It is not a giving up, but a giving over, a surrender to the natural order of things. Think of a river. It does not try to hold on to the water that flows through it. It does not cling to the banks or resist the pull of the current. It simply allows the water to move, to carve its path, to find its way to the sea. In the same way, you can allow your thoughts, your emotions, your experiences to flow through you. You do not need to grasp at them or push them away. You can observe them, feel them, and let them pass, knowing that they are not you, but simply part of the ever-changing stream of life. This is the heart of acceptance, to see things as they are, without judgment, without resistance. It is to recognize that life is not something to be fixed or solved, but something to be lived. When you accept what is, you open yourself to the possibility of peace. You stop fighting against the current and begin to float with it, carried by a force greater than yourself. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent. It means you become present, fully engaged with the moment, free from the burden of trying to make it something other than what it is. There is a story of a monk who was asked how he could remain so calm in the face of adversity. He replied, "When it rains, I get wet. When the sun shines, I am warm." This simple statement holds a profound truth. Life is not about avoiding discomfort or seeking pleasure. It is about being with what is, without adding layers of struggle or resistance. When you allow yourself to be as you are, to feel what you feel, to experience what you experience, you find a deep sense of ease. You realize that you do not need to change anything to be at peace. You only need to stop fighting against what is already here. This is not always easy. There are moments when the weight of the world feels too heavy, when the pain is too sharp, when the uncertainty is too vast. In those moments, it is natural to want to turn away, to distract yourself, to numb the discomfort. But even in those moments, there is a choice. You can choose to soften, to breathe, to let the experience be what it is. You can choose to trust that, like the river, you are part of a larger flow, and that even the most difficult moments will pass. You can choose to be present, not because it is easy, but because it is real. There is a kind of beauty in this presence, a kind of freedom. When you stop trying to control life, you begin to see it more clearly. You notice the small things, the way the light filters through the trees, the sound of birds' song in the morning, the warmth of a cup of tea in your hands. You begin to appreciate the simplicity of being alive, the miracle of existence itself. You realize that happiness is not something you need to chase or achieve. It is something that arises naturally when you stop resisting, when you allow yourself to be here, now, just as you are. This is the paradox of relaxation. The more you let go, the more you receive. The more you stop trying to be happy, the more happiness finds you. It is not a reward for effort, but a natural consequence of presence. When you are fully here, fully open, fully alive, you become a vessel for joy, for peace, for love. You become like the lake, reflecting the sky, or the tree, swaying in the wind, or the river, flowing to the sea. You become part of the great dance of life, moving with it, not against it. And in that movement, you find your place, your purpose, your peace. So take a deep breath. Feel the air fill your lungs and then let it go. Notice the sensations in your body, the thoughts in your mind, the emotions in your heart. Do not try to change them. Simply be with them as they are. And as you do, you may find that something shifts. The tension begins to dissolve. The resistance begins to fade. And in its place, there is a quiet, steady calm. This is the essence of relaxation. This is the essence of peace. This is the essence of being alive. The world moves in rhythms, like the gentle sway of tall grass in a meadow, bending but never breaking. You too are part of this rhythm, though you may not always feel it. There is a current beneath the surface of your life, a quiet flow that carries you forward even when you feel stuck. It is not something you need to create or control. It is already there, like the unseen roots of a tree that draw nourishment from the earth. To relax into this flow is not to give up or surrender, but to align yourself with the natural order of things. It is to trust that the river knows its way to the sea, even when the path is hidden by mist. Consider the lotus, which grows in muddy waters, yet remains untouched by the filth around it. Its petals open slowly, in their own time, and when they do, they reveal a beauty that seems almost otherworldly. You too are like this lotus. The mud of your struggles, your doubts, your fears. These are not obstacles to your growth, but the very soil from which you emerge. You do not need to fight against them or wish them away. Instead, you can allow them to be, knowing that they are part of the process. The lotus does not hurry to bloom, nor does it resist the mud. It simply is, and in its being, it finds its way to the light. There is a stillness within you, a quiet center that remains untouched by the chaos of the world. It is like the eye of a storm, calm and unmoving, even as the winds rage around it. This stillness is not something you need to create. It is already there, waiting for you to notice it. When you feel overwhelmed, when the noise of life becomes too loud, you can return to this place. You do not need to do anything to find it. You only need to stop, to breathe, to let go. The stillness is always there, like the deep, silent waters beneath the surface of a lake. Life is a series of moments, each one fleeting, each one precious. You cannot hold on to them, just as you cannot hold on to the wind or the waves, but you can be present with them, fully and completely. When you are present, you begin to see that each moment is enough, just as it is. You do not need to add anything to it or take anything away. It is complete in itself, like a single drop of dew on a leaf, reflecting the entire world in its tiny surface. When you allow yourself to be present, you begin to see that happiness is not something you need to chase or achieve. It is already here, in this moment, waiting for you to notice it. The seasons change, and with them, the world transforms. The leaves fall, the snow blankets the earth, the flowers bloom, and the sun shines brightly. Each season has its own beauty, its own purpose. You too go through seasons in your life. There are times of growth and times of rest, times of joy and times of sorrow. You cannot control these seasons, just as you cannot control the turning of the earth. But you can learn to embrace them, to see the beauty in each one. The winter may be cold and dark, but it is also a time of rest, of renewal. The summer may be hot and bright, but it is also a time of abundance, of life. Each season has its own gifts if you are willing to receive them. There is a story of a monk who sat by a river every day watching the water flow. One day a young man approached him and asked, "Why do you sit here every day? What are you looking for?" The monk smiled and said, "I am not looking for anything. I am simply watching the river." The young man was confused. "But what is the point of that?" he asked. The monk replied, "The river does not need a point. It simply flows, and in its flowing, it finds its way." You too can learn from the river. You do not need to have a purpose or a goal in every moment. Sometimes it is enough to simply be, to flow with the current of life, and to trust that it will carry you where you need to go. The mind is like a vast sky, endless and open. Thoughts come and go, like clouds drifting across the horizon. Some are light and fluffy, others dark and heavy, but the sky remains unchanged, untouched by the clouds that pass through it. You are like this sky. Your thoughts may come and go, but they do not define you. You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which they arise. When you see this, you can begin to let go of the need to control or cling to your thoughts. You can simply watch them, like clouds in the sky, and let them pass. There is a deep peace within you, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. It is like the stillness of a mountain, unmoved by the storms that rage around it. This peace is not something you need to find or create. It is already there, waiting for you to return to it. When you feel lost or unsettled, you can come back to this place of stillness. You do not need to do anything to find it. You only need to stop, to breathe, to let go. The peace is always there, like the quiet depths of the ocean, undisturbed by the waves on the surface. Life is a dance, a movement of energy and rhythm. You are part of this dance whether you realize it or not. Sometimes the steps are slow and graceful, other times fast and chaotic, but the dance continues always. You do not need to know all the steps or have all the answers. You only need to move with the music, to let yourself be carried by the rhythm. When you do this, you begin to see that the dance is not something you need to control or perfect. It is something you can simply enjoy, moment by moment, step by step. There is a light within you, a light that shines even in the darkest of times. It is like the first rays of dawn, breaking through the night and bringing with it the promise of a new day. This light is not something you need to create or find. It is already there, waiting for you to see it. When you feel lost or alone, you can turn to this light. You do not need to do anything to find it. You only need to open your eyes to look within. The light is always there, like the sun behind the clouds, waiting to shine through. The world is full of beauty if you have the eyes to see it. It is in the way the sunlight filters through the trees, in the sound of the wind rustling the leaves, in the smell of the earth after a rain. You do not need to go far to find this beauty. It is all around you in every moment. When you open your heart to it, you begin to see that life itself is a gift, a precious and fleeting thing. You do not need to do anything to earn it or deserve it. It is simply there, waiting for you to receive it. There is a deep wisdom within you, a wisdom that knows what you need even when you do not. It is like the instinct of a bird that knows when to migrate, or the intuition of a plant that knows when to bloom. This wisdom is not something you need to learn or acquire. It is already there, waiting for you to listen to it. When you feel uncertain or confused, you can turn to this wisdom. You do not need to do anything to find it. You only need to be still, to listen, to trust. The wisdom is always there, like the quiet voice of the wind, guiding you on your way. Life is a journey, a path that unfolds before you with each step you take. You do not need to know where the path is leading or what lies around the next bend. You only need to take the next step, to trust that the path will carry you where you need to go. When you do this, you begin to see that the journey itself is the destination. It is not something you need to reach or achieve. It is something you can simply be in, moment by moment, step by step. The path is always there, like the winding course of a river leading you home.